All right, so you ready to dive into this?
Absolutely, let's do it.
This deep dive, it's really for anyone out there who's got that reselling bug, you know?
Yeah, that entrepreneurial spirit.
Exactly. And
Uh,
we're tackling a big one today. Liquidation pallets versus going the wholesale route. When it comes to sourcing those amazing products, which one comes out on top? The research you sent over, it's got some seriously interesting stuff in there.
There really are some gems in there, some unexpected places to find those deals, too.
Oh, absolutely. Like where to find those pallets? You wouldn't believe some of the places.
Uh,
But, okay, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's break it down. Liquidation pallets. What are we even talking about here?
it's funny you should ask. I think a lot of people might be picturing, I don't know, like a pallet of broken toasters or something.
Right. Like, is this stuff even sellable?
And that's where it gets interesting because we're not talking about junk here. These pallets, they're coming from big name retailers, places everyone knows. We're talking like Home Depot, Walmart, even Best Buy.
Seriously, those big guys.
Yeah. They've got overstock, they've got returns, maybe last season's blender model, whatever it is, they need to move it. They can't just put it back on the shelves, right?
Makes sense. So they liquidate it.
Exactly. And that's where these pallets come in. They're a way for those retailers to clear out their inventory, recoup some of their costs, and for resellers like you, it's a chance to snag some pretty incredible deals.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal here.
Mhm.
But here's my question, and maybe this is obvious, but what makes it different from just, buying wholesale? Isn't it kind of the same thing?
That's a really good question because on the surface, it might seem similar, but there's a key difference here. Think of it this way. Wholesale is like going to the grocery store. You need 50 apples, you buy a case of 50 apples.
Right, straightforward.
Liquidation pallets, though, that's more like going to a flea market.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
You might go in hoping to find a vintage record player, but you end up walking out with an antique map and a box of old photographs. You never know what you're going to get, but that's part of the excitement.
The thrill of the hunt. I love it.
Exactly. And that's a big part of the appeal for a lot of resellers. It's that element of surprise, the potential for uncovering hidden treasures. With wholesale, you're buying in bulk, you know exactly what you're getting.
Which is great for consistency, right? Like if you're trying to build a brand or you need a reliable source for your online store, wholesale makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Wholesale is all about that predictability, that reliability. You're building relationships with suppliers. You're getting those bulk discounts. It's a different game.
So it sounds like we've got two very different approaches here, both with their own pros and cons. But let's get down to brass tacks. Say I'm intrigued by these liquidation pallets. Where do I even begin to find these things?
That's where the research gets really interesting, right?
For sure, it was like a treasure map, I swear. But one name kept popping up. The Bin Store Pallets and Truckloads, down in Augusta, Georgia.
That's a great example of a company that's really tapped into this market. What they do is offer these fixed price pallets, so you're not dealing with the back and forth of an auction.
Which can be intimidating, I imagine, especially if you're just starting out.
Definitely. Especially with those online auctions, things can get out of hand quickly.
Right, like you get caught up in the bidding frenzy, and next thing you know, you've spent your entire budget on a pallet of rubber chickens.
Exactly. And then what do you do with a pallet of rubber chickens?
Exactly. No, but seriously, online auctions can be a great option, but for someone who's maybe a little more risk averse or prefers a more, I don't know, predictable buying process, a place like the bin store, that's a game changer.
Absolutely. And it's not just them. There are other companies out there doing similar things, offering those fixed price pallets, making it a little easier to navigate this world.
But of course, we can't forget about the online world, right? Because there's a whole universe of options out there too.
Oh, absolutely. There are platforms dedicated specifically to liquidation, like Select Liquidation.
Which is huge, especially for anyone new to the game and feeling a little overwhelmed, right?
Oh, for sure. And then you've got your traditional online marketplaces like eBay, Facebook Marketplace. Those are always worth checking out.
You know what else popped up in the research that I thought was super interesting? The National Retail Federation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like who would thought, right? But apparently, they're a fantastic resource for connecting with suppliers, staying up to date on industry trends, even getting some insights into the world of liquidation.
You know what? That makes sense. They're at the heart of it all.
Right. It's all about knowing where to look.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about what these pallets are, where to find them, but now let's talk money.
The bottom line. Right.
Exactly. Because it's one thing to snag a great deal, but it's what you make after expenses,
Mm.
right?
Absolutely. Profit margins, gotta love them. And that's where things can get a little tricky with both liquidation and wholesale, honestly.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, people often focus on the initial price tag, but both options have these hidden costs that can sneak up on you.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so with liquidation, sure, that pallet might seem like a steal, but then you got to factor in shipping. Those things are massive, and with fuel costs these days, it can really cut into your profits if you're not careful.
Oh, for sure. I never even thought about that.
And then there's the risk. You might think you've hit the jackpot with a pallet of, say, electronics, only to open it up and find out half of them are, like, totally busted.
It's true. There was that one article you shared, I think, where this person bought a whole pallet of tablets.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And they thought they'd struck gold, but they turned out to be duds. Basically, just expensive paperweights.
That's liquidation for you. It's a gamble. It can be exhilarating, but you have to be prepared for those potential losses. It's not just about the thrill of the hunt. It's about making smart business decisions. Now, wholesale, on the other hand, might seem like the safer bet, but it comes with its own set of challenges.
Really? Like what?
Minimum order quantities can be a big one, especially for resellers who are just starting out or working with limited capital.
Minimum order quantities.
Yeah, MOQs, they're sometimes called. It basically means you have to buy a certain amount of a product to get those wholesale prices, and sometimes that minimum is way more than you need or even have space for.
That makes sense. Like you're stuck with all this inventory you might not even be able to sell.
Exactly. It's all about hitting those bulk discounts, which is great for established businesses, but it can be a real hurdle for someone who's just starting out.
So how do you even begin to decide which approach is right for you? Liquidation with its surprise factor or the more predictable wholesale route?
Honestly, it really depends on your personality, your business model, how much risk you're comfortable with.
Are you a gambler or a planner?
Exactly. Are you someone who thrives on that adrenaline rush of the unknown, who loves the challenge of turning a potential disaster into a reselling triumph?
Because that's liquidation through and through.
It is. It's about getting your hands dirty, being resourceful, thinking outside the box.
But if you're someone who prefers a more structured approach, a more predictable path, well, wholesale offers that stability.
For sure. You can carefully curate your inventory, build your brand around specific products, and cultivate a loyal customer base.
It's about playing to your strengths, right?
Exactly. And don't forget about the time commitment involved. Sorting through a pallet of random stuff, that takes a lot more time than unpacking a well-organized wholesale shipment.
That's a good point. It's like with liquidation, you're not just buying products, you're buying a project.
In a way, yeah, you're going to be spending time sorting through everything, assessing the condition, maybe even doing some minor repairs or cleaning to maximize your profits. With wholesale, you can often go straight from unpacking to listing those items online or putting them on display in your store.
It's all about that efficiency. And that ties into inventory variety too, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If you're someone who loves the idea of offering a constantly changing, diverse range of products, liquidation is like this giant grab bag of possibilities.
You never know what you're going to get.
But if you're trying to build a brand around a specific product or cater to a niche market, wholesale gives you that consistency and control that you need.
So ultimately, it boils down to your vision for your reselling business, right?
Exactly. What kind of reseller do you want to be? What are your goals? Answer those questions and the path will start to become a lot clearer. But there's one more thing to keep in mind.
Oh, what's that?
The reselling landscape, it's constantly changing. What's hot today might be collecting dust tomorrow.
It's true. Things change so fast these days. What's a reseller to do?
You got to stay adaptable. It's
Yeah.
not enough to just pick a lane, liquidation, or wholesale and just stay there with your eyes closed, you know?
Right, like you got to be ready to switch it up.
Exactly. Keep your finger on the pulse, see what's happening in the market, what's hot, what's not, and don't be afraid to adjust your sourcing strategy.
Adaptability, I like that.
Yeah.
And you know what else I liked? That question we came across in the research about designing the ultimate liquidation pallet. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah. The one tailored to your dream customer. Now that was a fun one.
It really got me thinking, if I could build my perfect pallet, what would be on it?
It's such a great exercise, isn't it? Because it forces you to really think about your target market, your niche, your own reselling style. It's like, what gets you excited? What do you love to find?
Okay, so for you, what would be on your dream pallet?
Me? Oh, man, that's tough. Well, I've always been a bit of a bookworm.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think my ultimate palette would have to be overflowing with, like, first editions, signed copies, rare manuscripts, you know?
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I can just picture it now, you surrounded by stacks of literary treasures, carefully dusting them off, uncovering their hidden worth.
See, that's what I love about reselling. It's not just about the stuff itself, it's about the stories behind them, the history, the thrill of the hunt.
Absolutely. And whether you're into vintage clothes or antique furniture or even those mystery-filled liquidation pallets, it's all about embracing that journey of discovery.
Exactly. Never stop learning, keep experimenting, and don't be afraid to refine your approach.
Yeah.
That's how you turn your passion for reselling into a successful business.
So well said. And on that note of inspiration, it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. I hope you're feeling as fired up as I am about the world of reselling.
And remember, there's no one right answer here, no magic formula. It's about finding your own path, your own rhythm,
Couldn't have said it better myself. To all you resellers out there, happy hunting.
and happy selling.